Hey everyone, welcome back. And it's Friday. Finally, it's Friday. Actually, this time last week, I was getting ready to fly out for Scheana's show, Juicy Scoop, and everything that you're going to see in the behind the scenes vlog. Now, we are back to talk about Scheana's show a little bit now that she's spoken out about it on her podcast, Shenanigans with Scheana Shay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of BTS from behind the scenes from that. It really has been a whirlwind, but with that too, also she went on her podcast and she talked about this interview between Rachel and Bethany. This is the first time she's actually giving her thoughts. Before it was more about Ariana and how she felt about it. She didn't really chime in too much. And now that she is, I'm like, oh, okay, I think it's important that we hear all sides of the story. So before we jump in, do all the YouTube things, smash the like button, show some love, and let's do the damn thing, right?
It's time for all your binge-worthy pop culture news. Welcome to Up and Adam.
All right, guys. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the show, Scheana's show. Now, she went on and did an amazing podcast, and it's with her co-host Janet, and they talked about how the show sort of went down. And I thought that this was really great because, when Scheana and I spoke about doing her show, I never wanted any sort of credit for anything. I didn't even think that she would mention Jason and I helping her out with it. And not because of any other reason, but it was her show and I really wanted her to just fully take credit for it. And she still gets to, right? Because she knocked it out of the park. Like she said, it was a dream come true for her. She performed Good as Gold. She performed Apples. She also killed it on stage. She hosted an amazing interview with Heather McDonald. So she knocked this out of the park, and everybody was so happy with the show by the time that they left. Well, when she's talking about it with Janet, she ended up mentioning that Jason and I helped her with writing the show. And again, most of these details will be in our behind the scenes members only vlog. But when we talked about doing the show, I was like, Scheana, this is kind of how it went down. I was like, so what is the format, if you don't mind me asking? And she's like, well, I'm going to perform. And she said, there will be 2 performances. That's what it was. And I said, who's performing? She said, me. And I said, oh, okay. So I'm guessing Good as Gold. And this was before I knew about Apples, right? And then I said, okay, so then what does the rest of the show look like? And she's like, well, right now I'm so busy with filming and there's so much going on. And I get that. They are filming nonstop. They're still trying to make sure that they have a kick-ass season 11. And they're trying to figure out, well, how to balance everything at the same time with businesses, being moms, being wives, having your friends outside of the show, then being completely immersed inside of the show, having production, want certain storylines to play out. And on top of that, Los Angeles is a pain in the ass to drive around. So you're getting sent all over the place in order to get the job done. So when we talked about it, I said, wait a minute, this is going to be, I got that. I can help you with this. And I said, how awesome would it be if you come out and you perform Good as Gold and you kick off with that. And then from there, we do an outfit change. And she's like, I wasn't really anticipating doing outfit changes. And I was like, trust me, it's going to be amazing. So she came out and did Good as Gold. And when she did, she took a break. And then I walked up on stage and I had this little bit, right? I had somebody reach out to me because in this little bit, I talked about, people are probably wondering, why the hell am I here? Who am I? And I just gave a little bit of a tidbit as to how I've known Scheana. For how long, how Scheana got me my first real job in Los Angeles, and how technically I met my first husband, my only husband. That was the joke because of Scheana. Now, I tried making a couple of those little jokes, and I'm not a comedian, but thank God they landed with the audience because there's nothing more, like Jason was telling me before I went up on stage. He's like, you're not a comedian, Adam. So if you're going to do that, and he's like, if you're going to take this chance, you better make sure that these things can land. And I was like, okay, no pressure. And he's like, no pressure at all. And I had somebody reach out because Jason was in the back of the room. So the back of the room of the bourbon room, there's the stage in the front and there's the back. Well, in between transitions from Good as Gold to me coming up to reintroducing Scheana to Scheana bringing up, and we'll get through what the format looked like, bringing up the people. you have transition music, right? You have to pick different songs. And that's like when you're like, okay, well, welcome up so and so. Then boom, the sound technician needs to hit the right lights, hit the right music. So Jason was in the back of the room. I made a joke on stage and I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I met my first husband because of Scheana. And I was like, don't worry. Like, it works so well for her the second time that if it doesn't work out for me this time, Jason, I'm sorry, but I have a lot to look forward to. But it was just a joke. It was trying to be a comedian when I'm absolutely not. And somebody reached out to me and they were like, Adam, I could tell that there was tension with you and Jason. And I'm like, that's absolutely not true. Jason was in that. They're like, you didn't stand next to each other at all. That's because Jason was parked next to the sound technician, making sure that it was one hell of a show and that there was not a single cue missed, which was amazing. And Jason killed it. And Sheena was so grateful for all of that, you know. And then after I came on and introduced her, I had a cue and I knew I needed to buy her time in order to do her outfit change. Well, then from there, I said, I think it would be great to play a game. She did that. She didn't. So then Sheena brought up three fan accounts, three Bravo fan accounts, Vanderpump Rules fan accounts, amazing, amazing content creators. And then they played a game. And I thought the game would be fun because she would ask a question about herself or her time on Vanderpump Rules because it is Sheena's show, right? And then whether they would get it right or wrong, which they all for the most part got it right, like they knew their shit, she would give sort of a context, like a backstory to what that question was and a little bit of a fun tidbit, like a BTS, a behind the scenes. And then from there, letting them go, transition music, and it was the Juicy Scoop music, intro music, and then brought out Heather McDonald. Absolutely killed it. Started with a game of bad apples where she would say a name, and like she said this on her podcast, so now I feel like I'm okay to say it. And the first name was Karen, then it was Rachel, then it was Bethany, and Heather had 1 minute for each name to like go on a rant, and she was absolutely hilarious with this. Well, from there, I was like, okay, so now we need some audience interaction. Let's do the audience interaction. That would be great. And I said, Brock, everybody wants to hear from you and Brock as a couple. So this would be fun to do sort of like a sip or spill. You know, like you can either sip your drink if you can't answer the audience question. Like if it's Vanderpump Rules focused and it's going to mess up your contract, then you can't answer it. You got to sip the drink. Or if it's something you can answer, then you spill the tea. And that way the audience gets to interact with you. And then from there, we knew that we were gearing up for the last question, which was going to be about when are you going to be performing Apples? That way it gave her time to come out and do her last performance. But I was like, you need another outfit change. And she's like, Adam. And I'm like, no, it's great. And her sister created this amazing outfit for her, put it together with the 27s, which is her band, and an apple on it. Just literally, the show could not have went any better. And she talks about this in her podcast. So go listen to Shenanigans with Scheana Shay. But she also spoke a little bit about, you know, the Rachel conversation with Bethany. And she talks about with Janet how it was just wild that she downplayed the relationship. She's like, so basically, from what Rachel said, she was just a cat sitter for you. And she's like, yeah, I don't know where she got that. My cat never got mercury shots. And then she said also when it came to the Palm Springs stuff, maybe I might have said at one point to her that I was trying to get it for a friend, but nobody ever knew it was Lala. She actually said Lala closed escrow on the day of the reunion and they all went up to the Palm Springs house the day after the reunion. And that's how that story went. So maybe in her mind, it kind of twisted a little bit, but no, she did not steal Brock's house. And Lala, she's also spoken on this. And if anybody stole my house, I guarantee you I'm not going to support them at their show or show up or anything like that. You wouldn't even be invited to my house or to my show if you stole my house. It doesn't even make sense. But from there, she also spoke out about how, you know, Rachel said, I did a podcast and it was her number one podcast talking about my breakup with James. And Sheena clarified and she's like, you asked me to come on and do that podcast. I didn't ask you to come on and do that podcast. You wanted to do it with me because you were comfortable and you had certain points that you wanted to hit. So what are you talking about? And Janet sort of confirmed these things. And I just, at the end of the day, I'm ready to put the Rachel Bethany interview behind us. Bethany has out more behind the scenes from that interview, how they kept it quiet, how amazing it was that they kept it quiet. And it was the number one podcast for a second. So everybody's been talking about it. I think now we can finally put it to bed. But what I am going to say is we do have a members only vlog coming where I'm going to share a lot more in depth about the things that happened. Our weekend what our weekend looked like because it was so much fun. And you guys are going to get to see photos and videos of everything. But today we are going live with Bravo Breaking News, Kim, for Hot Messy Topics at 12 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific. So get ready for that. Do all the YouTube things, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Love you.